2016 was a big year for gaming. Not only was the release of Overwatch a genre-defining time for first-person shooters, but you had VR technology hitting new heights with the release of Superhot, a game where you'd find yourself rolling on the floor, immersed into the sound design and atmosphere of red enemies on the screen, dodging bullets like Neo. Just as the first-person shooter genre hit new heights, so did the third person, with Uncharted 4 telling a next-level introspective story on our family values. One third-person shooter was set to come out and take over the world, though. It was one of the Destiny killers, rightfully named to take a portion of Destiny's audience, The Division. The Division nailed the Dark Zone, an area focused on extracting loot, proximity chat with players that could work together like a Destiny raid.
Yep.
15 seconds
I'm putting
left.
my stuff on the rope.
But at the risk that your comrade could turn on you at any time for that very same loot.
Yeah, this spot is pretty good.
It created incentive, and it delivered high stakes every time. But the Division was far from perfect. In fact, so many bugs, connections, and unfinished portions of the game took away from some magical experiences it provided. Not to say it wasn't a solid game, but it didn't have the time in the oven to perfect what it was aiming for. Just like Destiny in its first year, Division had a lot to build off of, but Destiny's first year was in 2014, and this is 2016 we're discussing. So Destiny did have time to perfect its craft, and with Rise of Iron, and today's topic, the Age of Triumph, it absolutely did just that. Welcome to the event that perfected Destiny, Age of Triumph. Watch this and follow the instructions to win a free deluxe Lightfall, and just to support what we do here in general. I appreciate you guys. Jingle bells, Christmas, those kids that knock at your door to sing you a song. What do they have in common? They're not playing
Raid Shadow Legends.
I like a game that respects my time, to be honest. I can play Raid whenever I like to, but I can also have it on autoplay whenever I need to.
Evan, what did I tell you about playing Raid Shadow Legends?
I'm sorry. That's better. Have fun.
There's dungeons, a full campaign, the Doom Tower, difficulty modifiers, a full grind for a ton of legends, each with their own moves, and most of all, it tests your mastery. New to Raid is Ronda Rousey. Yeah, you heard that right. Ronda Rousey's here. And to celebrate, use code RAIDRONDA, all one word, to get a ton of bonuses that you see on screen now. All you've got to do is log in and play Raid for 7 days between now and February 28th, and Ronda's yours. But there's more. New players can scan my QR code right here to get a free starter pack worth $30, a free champion Tyrell, and this cool in-game loot. You can find rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days. Also, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can get your exclusive rewards in Raid right now. People who download the game and report back to me through my socials, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, with proof they use my link, I'll enter you in for an exclusive chance to win Lightfall Deluxe. That's $100 of value. Merry Christmas, and back to the video. 2016 may have been on the cusp of a golden era in gaming, but for Destiny, it was like waking up for Christmas when the Rise of Iron DLC dropped. Not only was this a primetime example of a Destiny DLC, but it was a shining example of why people became obsessed with the franchise. Rise of Iron told a pretty short story of Siva, still Destiny fans' favorite thing from the game that hasn't been in Destiny since. Siva took over Rasputin and wiped out most of the Iron Lords, another faction players had never explored in Destiny to that point. A whole new enemy in the Siva Devil Splicers, and a whole new amazing area in the Plague Lands. The Plague Lands was like the Cosmodrome if it were somehow more snowy, and it added verticality like players had never really seen before. There wasn't a ton of activities around the Plague Lands like the Dreadnought had the year before, but there didn't really need to be. The Plague Lands wasn't trying to be the next Dreadnought. In fact, neither was the whole DLC, because this one was made by a smaller team and was meant to wrap up the game. The Plague Lands was a DLC for the Cosmodrome, and I love that you could just go there from the Plague Lands at any point, leaning into being an expansion of the Cosmodrome, not a separate area from it. The Plague Lands also added the Archon's Forge, which was a public event activity with random players being added, and tiers of challenges with it. The Forge was like the King's Court from the year before, but instead of earning levels and artifacts, you'd be earning some dope looking armor, and some even better weapons, with my favorite being But Not Forgotten, this sniper with an amazing scope for PvP. Some incentive for levels was found here, and some worth your time loot came with it once you hit that max level. It's something I find Destiny's best activities to really have, since good incentive drives just about everything in the franchise. Rise of Iron is a shining example of all of this, because although this DLC would be small, everything had a reason to engage with it. Need exploration around the Plaguelands? The Iron Gallahorn quest and Siva clusters all around. Need incentive? We just went over the Archon's Forge. Need a mystery? Look at Foundry 113, a place which took inspiration from the Vault of Glass Door. This Foundry area was where the raid Wrath of the Machine started. Need reasons to come back after beating everything else? This is where record books were huge. Record books were a prerequisite to Triumph score, having 20 million years of experience to land the first job. These record books had all kinds of challenges to fill out to 100% them, and were just a nice addition. You'd usually need to pay for these in Eververse, but the Rise of Iron one came with the DLC. It had challenges like clearing the siege engine in a certain amount of time, collecting the Siva fragments, and more. Record books gave access to getting the Days of Iron armor, which came with something extra special on top. This is where the ornament game shines so bright in Rise of Iron. Ornaments were not really a big part of Destiny to this point. Most of the fashion was found in Eververse and the endgame activities, but ornaments took another shot at adding some of that incentive. The original ornaments were only on these armor pieces from the book, and rapidly expanded to the Iron Banner sets. Wrath of the Machine was great, secrets were plentiful with Outbreak and the Last Exit mystery, and everything had a reason to be there. And finally, the Trials of Osiris! Oh, you thought I was gonna say something else? Fine. The Age of Triumph! So what could this do to the entire endgame? The Age of Triumph was the very nice bow to wrap up the present that was Rise of Iron and send Destiny on its way to Destiny 2. I'll be honest with you guys, nothing hit like this one.
The greatest champions of the darkness have stood against you and been defeated. Face them once more. Teach them fear.
Every raid came back to max level, meaning that, yeah, you could play Vault of Glass on the baby mode, or you could get crunched by Atheon. Bungie updated every single raid to max light level, with added challenges for the Age of Triumph record book, as well as having a weekly rotator of which raids had all the ornaments and rewards. Raid bugs were mostly patched, meaning that outside of a very small percentage of players who speedran and low-manned the raids, these were harder and less forgiving. The reason everybody wanted to be here wasn't just for max level, however. In fact, most people wanted that dang armor. And not only was the Age of Triumph ornaments a solid reward here for the armor, but there was 2 different ornament sets per piece of armor. The more flashy and the less flashy. Let's just take a moment to breathe it in and take in these armor sets. You want to be a hobgoblin? Be a hobgoblin. You want to be a goth spooky boy at the Hot Topic? Go solo Crota for the armor. You want to look moderately better than Oryx? Well, that's not possible, because he has nice teeth, a killer body, and probably a massive bigger than the Eiffel Tower. In Destiny 2 Rise of Iron Age of Triumph April update, the game makes you feel like Siva. In all seriousness, these armor sets were the pinnacle of endgame being Destiny, and it's why I always say that the true endgame is fashion over weapons. The armor was obviously a big sell for the event, but there was more things to be happy about. For example, Bungie had sunset weapons from year 1 and 2 going into the 3rd year, but in Age of Triumph, that legendary Fatebringer was back. Now it didn't have arc, but the exotic version did. Yeah, that's right. Exotic adept weapons with burns on them. This was a nod to the year 1 successes of Arc Fatebringer, but it was extended to all of the primary exotics and easily established loadout diversity in the endgame. Oh, and the reactions of getting the loot were back and better than ever.
Take him out, take him out. Yes. He's done. Yeah. Yes! Yes! Yeah!
Yeah. Nice. I got the Fatebringer! I got the freaking Fatebringer! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
Now you could chase a ton of exotics in each raid to complete the book, and you'd have legendary versions to still have if you wanted to use other exotics with them. You had to do the added challenge mode for each of the old raid encounters to get the exotics when it was weekly featured, but it was well worth it. Speaking of challenge, let's talk about how Bungie updated strike scoring in the Dawning event, and added the challenge of the Elders into Age of Triumph. This was the Prison of Elders hardest version, where it was just one big boss rush filled with enemies and added challenge for max score and max loot. Exactly what players wanted, and the perfect way to wrap a nice bow on the event and bring back some classic exotic weapons. For the hardcore players, this also meant coming up with new strategies to solo raids again, and players like Glad would even go on marathons, soloing all the raid bosses back to back without wiping one time.
Alright, solo's done. Oh, okay. Yes, dude. Let's go. Atheon done. Here we go. Come on.
It's safe to say that Age of Triumph was the event that perfected the game. Now, I use the term perfect very generously, as a game is really never perfect, but this is the closest Destiny ever came to it. With a live service game closing up shop and moving to a whole new one in its place, Destiny 1 remains a beautiful relic of the past. A simpler, smaller scale, but more focused timepiece when other games in the market were looking to scoop up the player base. You may be wondering then, why haven't these armor sets returned? And more importantly, why not with the returning raids? Wouldn't it make sense that these sets came back if the endgame is Destiny? And even more sense since they were already made? Well, the big B in Bungie also stands for something a little bit more aggravating, but realistic. Business. Ultimately, Bungie could bring back these armor sets, but then, my friend, you and I wouldn't be at good old tests every year. We'd instead be flashbanging our teammates with these sets on. If Bungie wanted to have these come back, there's two options. One, which didn't happen, was returning raids with all the guns and armor ornaments, which we don't have all the guns and we don't have the armor sets. Alright, option 1 is done. Option 2, though, is that Bungie waits until the end of Destiny 2, after Final Shape, and gives us a mega Age of Triumph, with all Destiny 1 and 2 raids and armor ornaments returning, and all the weapons. But who knows? Except Tess. Eververse was already getting a bit aggressive in Destiny 1. Think about having to pay for a title in the game. Record books were mostly a paid entry. But in early Destiny 2, Eververse jumped the gun, and players abandoned the game because of it. Bungie peeled it back in Forsaken, but Eververse has sort of made a comeback these past couple of years, and bordered the line of too far. We also have Transmog, which I like the idea of, but no other game makes you pay to have these sets. So what makes you think Age of Triumph wouldn't be locked behind a paywall? Hell, I think the community would easily buy these again if Bungie even put them behind a paywall, but times are different now. That Bungie, the one that made those sets, is mostly gone, and the landscape of games in the genre of Destiny are also either bad or gone themselves. Nothing really competes. Nobody buys another MMO light like Destiny, so Bungie doesn't have to please the fanbase with sets like these. They can focus on whatever they want to, good or bad. Let's not also forget that Bungie's working on other games, so I don't think their priority is endgame ornaments for Destiny players anymore. And they did just get like almost $4 billion from Sony, so everything in their mind is going perfectly. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to do special since it's basically Christmas time, so Merry Christmas to all of you. Age of Triumph, the story of it, the landscape of games, the reason it was awesome, what Destiny 2 is missing without the armor sets at the very least, and now, Merry Christmas again, subscribe, and here's some bloopers.